SAFM Sports Special with Nick Bauer.
At the moment, though, let's talk about how we can affect a change in sport. The 25th of October here in South Africa, the inaugural Sport Industry Summit will take place, and it sees the sports industry's leading agenda setters and decision makers convening to learn, share best practice and network. James Monteith, Director of BMI Sport and Information, joining us on SAFM Sports Special now. James, good afternoon and welcome. How exactly did you get it right? You got Yuri Roux of Rugby South Africa, the CEO, joining Jacques Faal of Cricket South Africa, the CEO there, Robin Peterson, the CEO of SAFA, along with Danny Jordan and a host of others, all around the same table to share their brainpower.
Hi, Nick. Good to chat to you again. That's a very, very interesting question because far too often since the end of the World Cup, we've had, conference after conference, and generally it's a case of soccer telling the rest of the sporting codes what they did right, what worked and what didn't. This is going to be a groundbreaking summit in that we, as you said, have got all three of them around the same table as founding partners of the summit. Not only that, we've got a whole host of international speakers coming out to share a lot of their knowledge and their learnings and insights as well. One of the keys for the summit, however, is that it's not a case of just talking. It's got to be about action. You mentioned earlier that it's about sharing as well. It's not just what we can learn from some of the luminaries who are coming in from overseas, but what we can teach them also. And that list is quite extensive. I mean, we've got guys like Steve Martin, who's the CEO of M&C Saatchi in the UK. His agency, M&C Saatchi Sports Entertainment, was voted best agency in the UK for 4 out of the past 5 years. Mark Pennis, who's the CEO of AS Roma. Phil Beard, the CEO of Queen's Park Rangers, and was the former CEO of the O2 Arena as well. So, these are some of the big names in sport internationally. So it looks like it's going to be quite an exciting lineup.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But like you said, the trick will be that it doesn't just turn into a big talk shop. And networking is important, but you want to see them doing more than just exchanging business cards. And I know, maybe a little bit cynical of me to say, stroking each other's egos. I mean, what's the end goal for you guys? What change do you want to see in the world of sport in South Africa?
Well, that's not cynical at all, because that's really, the nature of sport in this country. As BMI, we've been involved in the sport and sponsorship business for the past 25 years, and for us, this is the first time we've ever gotten involved as a sponsor of an event as well. So that, I think, first of all, says quite a bit about the importance we're placing in this summit. And, it's not just about swapping business cards. We're sitting in a situation where the sports landscape, both globally and locally, has changed quite dramatically. As a result of the downturn in the economy globally, we're seeing rights fees costing a lot more. We're seeing sponsors having less money to activate and actually, make their events happen. So we're being forced to do things a lot smarter. One of the key focuses globally as well as locally is to say, well, how do we move money out of traditional media and maybe into, something like the second screen? How do we take a lot of the content online and into the digital space, and how do we further the conversation as well, outside of the traditional on the pitch or watching it on television? So I think for us, we definitely need a situation where we don't just walk away from a summit having said, oh, well, that was nice and we learned, and we actually learned a little bit, but about the actual practical implementation of a lot of the strategies that are going to be discussed as well.
And refresh our memories. What part does the public play in this inaugural Sports Industry Summit?
Well, at the end, the public is vital to anything to do with sport, because without the fans, we wouldn't have sport. It's the fans that actually drive sport in this country. And the role that they play is, helping us to engage with them in terms of the kind of content that they want through sponsorships, how sport is going to evolve in the country over the next five years. We see all too often, you were reading out all of the results of the Telkom knockout earlier. It's worrying to see that the stadiums are not full. This is one of the premier cup competitions in the country, but we can't fill up stadiums. So rights holders and sponsors alike need to engage with fans. We need to bring fans back to the actual game, whether it's watching it on television or actually in the stadium as well. So the role that the fans are going to play is, really making their voices heard, I think. And I think it's time that sponsors and rights holders sit up and actually listen.
Easier said than done, though. I know I'm being a little bit defeatist, but great. We can get all these big names in sport all together, and we can talk and talk and talk and talk. But how are we going to get the private and public sector together and ensure that the development of sport is driven by both parties?
Well, it's exactly that. You've got to have that partnership. Sponsorship in its core realm is a partnership between the rights holder and the sponsor for the betterment of both of the parties. So it's in the sponsor's interest that development takes place, because without youngsters coming up through the ranks, we're not going to have stars in 10, 15 years time. We need programs in place, and we need corporates to actually fund those programs in order to make them viable and actually make them happen. Without stars, without development, there is no sport. So the rights holders won't have rights that they can go to sponsors and generate value from.
All right. Well, besides getting these bigwigs together and talking about sponsorships and taking sport forward, do you think it'll be a chance for smaller sporting brands to showcase themselves, maybe get a little bit of traction and move forward in the ranks?
Absolutely. I think that's vital. We're sitting in a situation in South Africa where rugby, soccer and cricket, the three major sporting codes, sit with the vast majority of the revenue from sponsorship and television deals, whereas someone like swimming, for example, won the most medals at the Olympic Games, sits without an actual sponsor. We've seen in the press over the past couple of weeks how they didn't even have enough money to send the sponsors off to a World Cup event, and that just can't happen in this country. We're a sports-mad country. We need to start finding solutions to these problems. We can't have a men's national hockey team not being able to go overseas and practice because there isn't enough financial support for them to actually perform at the peak of the world sport.
Do you think you can honestly change that mindset, though? Because speaking to a lot of people that have commercial interest in the sporting world, they're just honest and say, I'm only going to put my money where I get the biggest bang for my buck. And at the end of the day, that's football, cricket and rugby in this country.
Well, it is football, cricket and rugby because those are the ones that are getting the majority of the television time. I think we need to work a little bit smarter. We need to realize that television is not the only medium that drives sport and drives interest in sport. We have new mediums like Twitter and Facebook and social and digital platforms that allow a lot of these sporting codes in order to actually start interacting with their supporter base. We need to start tapping into that. And yes, the conversation needs to start somewhere, and I think that's one of the aims of the summit, is to actually start all of those conversations and get the ball rolling.
All right, so the inaugural Sport Industry Summit is happening on the 25th of October. It's going to see some of the biggest names in the sport coming together to find out how they can take areas of sponsorship, marketing, major events, public relations in sport, digital communications, and other overarching topics affecting the South African sport industry forward. Any chance that more people can still attend?
Certainly. I think that the easiest thing to do is just grab all the details from the website, which is www.sportsindustry.co.za, and all the details will actually be up there.
All right, we'll put up those details on our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com. SFMSS is where it's at. Director of BMI Sports and Information, James Monteith. Thank you so much for joining us on SAFM Sports Special. It's been a pleasure and good luck with that inaugural Sports Industry Summit taking place this Thursday.
Thanks, Nick.